If you thought pure maple syrup could only be harvested from trees in New England, think again. Shad Baker has been tapping sugar maples in Letcher County, Kentucky for several years.
We've been doing it every year since 2012. This part of the state is largely forested. We've got a lot of maple trees. We've got a lot of people that are looking for a way to make money off of their land.
Theoretically, you could make syrup from the sap of any tree. The question is how much sugar is available in that sap? And that's where sugar maple really distinguishes itself.
And since Kentucky has over 600 million sugar maples, this spring Baker and a group of extension agents and woodland owners went north seeking knowledge. Braving a New England snowstorm, the Maple Tour began at Grandpa Joe's Sugar House in Maine.
These folks are from the University of Kentucky, and they're interested in doing maple syrup down there.
What was attractive about Ben's operation is, to me, it perfectly mirrors the way people here would get into maple.
We've probably got about 450, maybe not quite 500 taps out here with another 200 to go. We're small compared to the ones that are in northern Maine that are, the average is 40,000 taps.
McKinney started out making syrup the traditional way.
Usually start off with 10 or 12 buckets in the driveway, and it turns into a bigger operation. That's what's happened over the past 15, 20 years here in the state of Maine. If people know that you make syrup, then they become your best friend.
One of the things that I saw with Grandpa Joe's was meeting Ben McKinney. He was a lot like us, and his operation was really cool. It was kind of a down-to-earth operation. It was a board and batten building made out of rough lumber, and so it was something that I felt that we could do here.
So the second place we went to was Pingree's Maple Products, and Tom Pingree was the owner.
The family started making maple syrup in 1969. There's something about making a product from a different product, and people just go crazy for it. They just love it. So
his operation, to me, I kind of envision it being what one would be if it stepped up from Ben's. His sugar shack was a little bit bigger. His evaporator was a little bit bigger. The setup that he almost had like a display room where he had all of his merchandise on the shelves, and he had it set up so that when they had their Maine Maple Weekend, they could pass through and watch as his guys were feeding the wood into the burner of the evaporator.
You're always looking for more taps and to make more syrup, because you end up selling more syrup. The more you make, the more you can sell.
There were people coming and going, and I remember I grabbed one of those folks, and they'd come every year, bought maple syrup there every year, and they knew that they could come on May Maple Sunday and buy maple syrup or maple candy, ice cream with maple syrup on it.
There's maple-covered walnuts, maple fudge, maple taffy, candles, and the local favorite maple cotton candy. Next stop on the Maple Tour, Windham, Maine, to see Nash Valley Farm sugar maker Rich Morrill.
Everything's all retail here on Maple Sunday or Maple Weekend, depending on how many days we operate. We do a self-serve here, so it's available to people who want year-round. There's actually a following for the cotton candy, even when we're at the county fair. People say, I only get it 2 times a year, Maple Sunday and then going to the county fair to get the maple cotton candy, so they really do like it.
Unlike the board and batten, rustic kind of look that the first two had, Nash Valley's was more manicured. He had a nice, well-done maple sugar shack, and his evaporator was brand new.
He really didn't own the maples that he was tapping. The maples actually belonged to a rock quarry, and he had an agreement that he could go on and tap their maple trees. That's something here in Kentucky, especially eastern Kentucky, we have a lot of absentee landowners. That gives us an opportunity that maybe a producer can go in and work with that landowner and say, hey, I want to do this. Could I use your maple trees?
High in the hills of New Hampshire, the last stop on the Maple Tour was at Bascom Maple Farms.
You can put in about 12 million pounds of syrup. I put in 9 million in here. I've had over $25 million worth of syrup in here.
He was really on a totally different plane.
There's about 40 people working here with bottling the maple syrup and selling equipment and supplies and working outdoors. And there's another 10 people that work in Brattleboro at a sales and marketing operation.
He does the bulk of the production there on his own, but he also buys sap and buys syrup from other producers that might not be interested in marketing their syrup to the public.
Tapping 84,000 trees using 100% vacuum requires a modern system to detect leaks in over 350 miles of tubing.
It was all automated, or at least a lot of it was. They had gauges that were on the lines coming down that could tell them what the pressure was and how much sap flow they were getting. So it went from being a mom and pop kind of a deal to being more of a commercial operation.
The U.S. production, they figured, is growing by at least 1 million trees a year. That's 100 tractor trailer loads more maple syrup per year additional production. So the projection is over the next 10, 12 years, the U.S. production is going to double.
It was an example of best case scenario, going from just a backyard tapper to a full-scale business.
Bruce had a lot of high comments for Kentucky and the potential in Kentucky, and I really like that. And so that's something that we can share with our producers, that statewide, not just here in Eastern Kentucky, but statewide, that there is a potential for maple syrup.
While the northeastern United States is most well known for their maple syrup, we can produce quality maple syrup here in Kentucky. You can get flavors of vanilla, buttery flavors, as well as nutty flavors, depending on where and when the sap is collected.
So in a real sense, what we brought back was a knowledge of how to do this in every different level. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, doesn't have to necessarily be expensive. It can be as low budget or as high end as you want it to be. It really is, can be tailored to the producer. And we feel like this is something that really has potential for Kentucky in general and specifically for Eastern Kentucky.
If you'd like more information on maple syrup in Kentucky, contact your local county cooperative extension office.